So you can use the online service recorded, YouTube channels from these sites. So you can see that there are two sites in this one. So one is Vijayi Bhava. So it is the web address of the Vijay Bhava site. You can see there. And one more address is there. I'll give you. What is that? I'll give you that. So this is the slideshow by me, search engine. So we are coming now to your MSc second semester electrodynamics portion allotted to me. Fine. So what are the basic slides you have to see? So already I have done this. So that is scalar and vector potentials. I have done it. So potential is what? It refers to a point which is energetic in the space. So energetic point, it can be electrically energetic or it can be magnetically energetic. There are two types of energy. So depending on that, we call it as electric potential, and it is also called as magnetic potential. So why electric potential is produced? What is the cause? And why magnetic potential is produced? What is the cause? So that can be understood by following the hierarchy shown here. So to produce the electric field, basically we need two types of charges. It can be a positive charge or it can be a negative charge. So electric field produced by these charges, they can be classified into two types. One is a scalar electric field, another is a vector electric field. So scalar field, already you have studied in BSc, Coulomb's law. So what is that? Static electricity. So static electricity talks about the charges which are not under motion. There will be two clusters of charges, static there, not moving. So one cluster, you can treat it as it is at a higher potential, or you can call it as a positive potential point, and another one you can call it as a negative potential point. So accordingly, a test charge, when it is brought near a potentially high point, it will get attracted or it gets repelled. That is what the Coulomb's law of electrostatics talks about. So similarly, we have studied Gauss law. So what is Gauss law? So if you keep a cluster of charges at a point, it won't stay in one point. Of course, this is not possible in practice. This is theory. So cluster of charge, it can be a positive charge or it can be a negative charge. So when you place it in one point, it will have a spherical distribution. Okay. So surrounding the point of cluster of charges, you will construct a envelope, spherical shape. Of course, this is an imaginary surface, so that we call it as a Gaussian surface. So the charges will get distributed on the surface of this symmetrically with respect to center of the sphere. That is Gauss law. That is Maxwell's first equation. Okay. So if you come to the vector type, so then you can see here a vector potential. Here we are in the hierarchy, electric vector it is, of course, potential, electric potential, and I am talking about vector electric potential. So vector is something which has got magnitude as well as direction. Fine. So vector, it has got direction, means it can change its direction. So naturally, the charges which are responsible for the electric potential, so they are under motion. So that is why we can classify this as what? Dynamic charge. So vector electric potential is produced by what type of charges? Electric dynamic charges. So you can see dynamic charges, again they can be positive, they can be negative. So depending upon that, electric potential is produced at one observation point. Okay. So if you follow this hierarchy, come to the magnetic hierarchy. So under magnetic hierarchy, you can see here, there are two bifurcations. Again, one is scalar magnetic potential, another is vector magnetic potential here. So scalar magnetic potential, so it is produced by a static pole, and a vector magnetic potential is produced by a dynamic charge. So now there is a confusion here. Here I am writing it as a pole. Okay. and here I am writing it as a charge. Fine. So why I am writing like that? So static pole, it do not exist in nature. It is an imagination, it is. Fine. And vector magnetic potential, you can see, it cannot be produced by a moving pole. That concept is wrong. A pole cannot be under motion and it can produce magnetic field. Okay. So that is not possible. Fine. So that is why static pole, I will classify it into two types. One is north pole, another south pole. So the magnetic field produced by this static pole, I will classify it as two types. That is the north pole producing one type of magnetic potential and another pole producing another type of magnetic potential. Okay. So that means there are 2 points in the magnetic field. One is at a higher magnetic potential, that is north pole, and another one is the south pole, which is at a lower magnetic potential. Okay. So if you come to vector magnetic potential, just now as I told you, it is produced by the dynamic charge. So here I am not writing it as a pole. So the basic entity which produces the magnetic field is the moving charge. So that is why the movement associated with the charge is responsible for production of the magnetic potential. So under this classification, the end result again ends at a positive charge and a negative charge. That is why most of the time, so we will come across either positive charge or a negative charge responsible for two types of energetic regions in space. So the region can be electrically higher potential or it can be at a lower potential, magnetically higher, magnetically lower, electrically higher and electrically lower. So that is why in further studies, whenever we are coming across the potential, electric potential, so I will be talking about vector electric potential, scalar electric potential. So I think in earlier classes I have used two notations. One is the notation phi and another is the notation A. Okay. So phi is the electric scalar potential it is. So it is used in Coulomb's law, Gauss law, etc. There the potential or flux is written as phi. But if you come to the other laws, for example Ampere's law, okay, Biot-Savart law, etc. So there we will be talking about dynamic moving charges. So there I am using vector as A there, capital A with a arrow mark on its head. Okay. So this is the difference between a scalar electric potential and a vector electric potential. So I am continuing. So sharing the screen. So you can have a look at it. Fine. So now I'll move to the next slide. So next slide talks about static and dynamic charge. So these are all basics required for further derivations in electrostatics or just a minute. So just now we have heard about static potential and dynamic potential. So V is the standard notation for the static potential. So I am using here VA, subscript is A, static potential I am using. So dynamic potential I am writing it as UD. Okay. So here potential definition is, there are two charges here. This is the source charge, this is the test charge. Source charge is constant, it is not moving. Test charge, it is moving. So you can see here A and B are the 2 points which is at a distance r. The value of r changes as the test charge changes its position. So it can be here, it can be here, it can be here. It is moving around the test charge, around the source charge. So accordingly it will feel different energy. So if it is nearer to this one, okay, so let us say both are similar charges. So what will happen? Q2 will get repelled by Q1. That means when it moves nearer to Q1, it gets more potential energy. So if it moves away from Q1, it gets less potential energy. So same thing happens for all the points surrounding Q1. Okay. So if you know VA, so from VA you can find out force. You can find out electric field. Okay. So you can calculate various things if you know the basic. So VA, it is source charge divided by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Epsilon naught is the permittivity of the free space, that is vacuum. So I am keeping the source charge in vacuum. So I am not talking about the media. So why this 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught comes here? Because I am writing the equation in SI system, SI units. So you have to divide the equation by 4 pi epsilon naught. Otherwise it is simply Q by Q1 by R it is. Fine. So if you know the potential, you can calculate the electric field. So what is the electric field? Q1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into R square. So if you know E, then finally you calculate F. So F is nothing but test charge times the electric field at the point of observation. So my point of observation is A. So naturally at this point, what is the charge? Q2. So Q2 I am putting it here. So you can see remaining is the value of E. So if you multiply that, you will get the force experienced by the test charge A at a distance r from the source charge. So this is about the static charge. Fine. So now if you come to a dynamic charge. So what is a dynamic charge? So charge is not at a static, it is moving. It is moving as a function of time. It is following this trajectory you can see here. Okay. So at every point, so let us say I will associate this as x coordinate. I will associate this as y coordinate. So the charge is moving along this locus. So naturally this is the direction of electric field. Okay. So now I can observe the test charge Q2. What is the effect of the electric field on test charge with respect to the source charge? Source charge is also moving. So test charge where it is? It is at point A. Okay. So I can observe the effect of on Q2 because of Q1 at this point, or I can observe at this point means here with respect to this point, or I can observe the effect with respect to this point or anywhere along the locus of this. Okay, anywhere. So that is the difference between a static charge and a dynamic charge. So now you can see I can write here the potential as what? The source charge value is Q1, same equation here, but only the difference is that I am writing here R as R plus delta R. Okay. So why I am putting a delta R? So R is the distance between point A and point B. So B may be here, B may be here, D may be here, it is changing. So naturally the radius of observation, it will have an extra additional factor plus or minus delta R. Okay. So I have taken only positive charge, that means it is increasing order I have taken. Okay. So that is why R is written as R plus delta R. So if you know the potential, you can write the electric field. So it is electric field. Everything is same. Only R value is squared here. Okay. Easy to remember. So if you know electric field, multiply it by what? Test charge, that is Q2. E times Q2 is the force experienced by Q2. So naturally you will arrive at this equation. What is the equation? F equal to Q1 Q2 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught R plus delta R whole square. So now you see there is a difference between static charge and a dynamic charge. So most of the time students get confused with a static charge and a dynamic charge and the equations associated with it. So that is why the basics are clear, further theory will be clear to you. Okay. So now I will move to the next slide. Is this slide clear to you? Yes. So I am moving to the next slide. .
Yes, ma'am.
one step further of the dynamic charge. So earlier slide, you saw a dynamic charge following some haphazard way. But here I am quantizing the locus of the moving charge. So quantizing means what? I am fixing the locus. It can be a closed path, that is the circle I am seeing here. So you can see here the charge can move this way, that is what? Anti-clockwise rotation, or it can go in this way, that is the clockwise rotation. So instead of writing Q, I am writing it as I here. So what is I? I is the current. What is current? The charge, number of charges flowing per second. That is current. So instead of showing Q, I am showing here I. Fine. So now you can see here, because the charge is following a closed path. So now you come to the second part of the potential classification. So it is producing a vector potential there. And then you came to magnetic potential. When the charge is moving in a closed locus, so what it will produce? It will produce magnetic potential. That is the second classification, the last classification you see there. Okay. So now you see, this is Lenz's law. So you hold your fingers, right hand, you raise it up, close your hand, all four fingers. Okay. So the direction of tip of your finger, it will show you the direction of the flow of the charge. So you can hold the hand like this. So a closed path it is. Okay, hold like this. So this shows you, the thumb shows you direction of the magnetic field. Okay. So now how is the current flowing in the left part? So it is going in the clockwise direction. So what you should do? You hold your hand in the clockwise direction. Okay, the tip of your finger should be in the clockwise direction. Then thumb will point towards you. That is Lenz's law. Okay, it shows the direction of the magnetic field produced by the moving charge. So similarly, if it is an anti-clockwise direction, the holding of your hand will be anti-clockwise. Okay, so your finger should point along the direction of the arrow mark. So now you can see that the thumb is pointing away from you. That means the magnetic field produced is not towards you, it is backside, away from you. So that is what the current carrying loop acts just like a magnetic dipole. So if one face is acting as north, the back face is acting as a south. So that is why a current carrying loop can be called as a dipole. So now the concept of dipole is introduced. So what is a dipole? It is a current carrying loop having two poles. One is north and another is south. So try to remember now hydrogen atom. So what is a hydrogen atom? It has got a positive charge in the center and electron at 1 angstrom radius, it is rotating around this path. So now the hydrogen atom resembles this situation now. Then naturally hydrogen atom, it should act just like a dipole. So I think now the concept of dipole is clear to you. Why the atoms are called dipole? Because of this reason. The charges are going in the circular path like this, different orbits, KLMNOP. It is going in the different orbits at different radii. So as a result, what happens? Magnetic field of different varying strength is produced surrounding the the atom or molecule. So that is why the atom can be classified as a dipole. So it can be a monopole, it can be a dipole, okay, it can be a tripole. Of course, tripole we don't use because there should be even number. It is dipole, quadrupole, like that, hexapole, like that we'll use. Okay. So with this now, I am moving to the next slide. I think the concept of dipole and dynamic charge and production of electric field as well as magnetic field is clear from the earlier slide. So what is this? So this talks about the electromagnetic induction and the Faraday's law. So now what is electromagnetic induction? So to show that, I have drawn here two diagrams. So one is this one, that is I have got a bar magnet here. You can see here, this is a north pole, this is a south pole. and this is a loop. So in the loop, this is wire, it is wire connected with a current meter here. So no electric battery potential is applied to this one. Fine. So only one meter is connected. Let us say it is an ammeter. Fine. So now what I am doing, I am moving this battery. You can see here the battery can move. The magnet can come down or it can go up. So when it comes down, what happens? So this is south pole. So these are the flux lines of the south pole. So the flux linkage of the circuit. So this I call external circuit. It keeps on changing as a function of time. So if it near the external loop, the flux linkage is more. If it goes away, flux linkage will be less. So as a result, an EMF is produced. What is EMF? Potential difference. So how it is observed? It is observed as a current. The meter here, current meter you are connecting here, it immediately shows deflection. So which is an indication of production of electromagnetic magnetically induced EMF. Okay, so that is why this is called electromagnetic induction. Induced EMF this is. And how induced EMF is measured? Induced EMF is nothing but it is the electric potential. So E, I will write it as, sometimes they will use small e, epsilon also they will use. Okay, so E is directly proportional to rate of change of flux. Here phi is the flux. So now come back to the first slide. So first slide I told there are two types of potential. One is a scalar magnetic potential, another is a vector magnetic potential. For scalar magnetic potential, I am using the flux line as phi here. Okay. So now you see the rate of change of flux is written as d phi by dt. So if I remove the proportionality, I will get a constant. Okay. So now what is the inference from this? Changing magnetic flux linked to a closed loop induces electric current in the loop. So this you have studied in BSc. So this I will use further in next equations. That's why I am teaching you. So exactly reverse of this happens if I am taking north down and south opposite. So north is a source, south is a sink. So I have shown here the arrow marks pointing outside. So now you see the direction of current is reverse. So this current can get reversed. Again you can reverse this by moving the magnetic away. So in this diagram it is moving down. So the arrow mark here is down. So if I take it out, this arrow mark will be up. So this arrow mark will be up. Again the direction will change. So that is why the induced EMF direction and magnitude, it depends upon the flux linkage and the movement of the magnet you are introducing in this loop, electric loop. Okay. So this is the inference from the electromagnetic induction Faraday's law slide. Okay. So with this now I am moving to the next slide. So now you see I am coming to the Ampere's law. So Ampere's law means what is that? It's a dynamic charge. Okay. So dynamic charge, how it is moving? It is moving along a vertical line. So this is a straight current carrying conductor. So electric current is flowing. What is its effect? It is producing the magnetic field. So it is exactly different from Faraday's law. In Faraday's law, what we require? We require an external magnet. So if the magnetic flux linkage changes, electric current is produced. But here what is happening? Electric current is flowing and magnetic field is produced. Okay. And how is the distribution of electric field? It is symmetric. So you can see I have written a factor R here. Okay. So as R, how R changes? So R changes depending upon the field strength. So here field strength is different. How field strength is determined? It is given by mu naught I divided by 2 pi R for a straight current carrying conductor. Okay. R is the radius of the loop. So you can see here R is more, magnetic field is less. So that is why if you come nearer the current carrying conductor, magnetic field is high. If you go away from the current carrying conductor, magnetic field is low. Okay, here I have given you the notation. So you can follow the notation. So here I have shown you the direction of B. So I think now you might have understood. So why B is called as a vector here. At every point on the loop, you can draw tangent. You can see the direction of the tangent is changing here. Fine. So that is why it's a vector. It has got continuously changing direction. So perpendicular to x and y, that is perpendicular to xy plane along the z axis, the electric field is located. So this already you have learnt it. Anyhow, I am using this further. That's why I am brushing up your memory. So now let us come to Lorentz force. Yesterday's class I have taught you Lorentz force. So same thing I am showing in the slide. So you see here this is an electromagnetic field. So E is along the y-axis, B is along x-axis. Electric and magnetic both existing together. That is why it is called as electromagnetic field. Okay. So as you know, electric and magnetic field they cannot be along the same line. So they will be always at a phase angle of 90 degrees. That's why I am taking E along y-axis, B along x-axis. So now let us say I have kept a charge. Q is my charge. So earlier it is here A earlier and it has moved to point B. So it is moving with a velocity v. You can see here, and this is the locus of the charge. In a time t, it has moved from point A to point B. Fine. So that is why I have shown here a vector mark. So v is a vector here. Because I am talking about the force, I have taken v as a vector. So now you can draw perpendicular from A and B. They will intersect, then they will form a triangle. So this perpendicular or this length projection, I will call it as FE. Okay, and this projection I will call FB. Why I will call FB? You drag this one down. Where it touches B axis. So you drag from this point to this. So from this end to this end, it talks about the magnetic force experienced by the charge. Okay. So similarly, if you drag like this and from this point to this point, you will get a segment here. So the segment length I have taken it as FE. So how to define FE? So to define FE, I have to think about the force experienced by the charge. What is the force experienced? So I will call it as F subscript L. So what is that? That is the Lorentz force. Why it is Lorentz force? Because the charge is moving in the electromagnetic field. The force is called Lorentz force. Okay. So Fe, this is Fe. So how to get Fe? If I know theta, I can find out this is the opposite side of this triangle. So component will be FL sin theta. FL is this one. V or FL, they are along the same direction. Okay. So this is FL sin theta, or in terms of the equations I can write the charge times the electric field, that is equal to QE. Similarly, FB, that is this one. So this is what adjacent side of the triangle. So I can call this as FL cos theta. So using the formula, I can write this part as Q times V cross B, where V is the velocity of the charge and B is the magnetic field in which the charge is moving. So what is the total force experienced by the charge? It is given by FL. So FL is equal to FE plus FB. Okay, so that is your Lorentz force. So if the charge is 0, so that's what I am going to the next slide. So there is a dependency of FL on the charge. You can see here. Okay, so total force experienced is the Lorentz force. It depends upon the charge. If charge is there, then only Q that is greater than 0, then only FL can be greater than 0. So otherwise the value will be different. Fine. So we will go to the next slide. Okay. Fine. So here I have shown FL in a different way. So let us say there is a charge here at some interval of time. So it is positive, non-zero charge particle. So I have given examples here: electron, proton, muon, so pion, etc. Pion plus and minus, muon plus and minus you can take here. Okay. So let us say an electromagnetic wave is moving, a train is moving okay, wave train, and it approaches the charged particle. Fine. So when it approaches the charged particle, then what will happen? It will be kicked. So it will follow some path. I have shown the path as this one. So this is the direction along which the charged particle is kicked or pushed. So that is the direction of the Lorentz force. Fine. So if the case is, I take Q equal to 0, that is the particle is not having any charge. Q is equal to 0. What is the effect of electromagnetic wave on that? Okay, so as the law predicts, if Q is 0, FL is 0. So you put Q equal to 0, FL becomes 0. So this is a null vector actually, FL here, null vector. It don't experience any force. Okay, so some examples I have taken: photon, neutron, pion with zero charge, sigma particle with zero charge, muon with zero charge, etc. So they do not get deflected by the electromagnetic wave. Okay, so to feel electromagnetic field, so what you require? The carrier is a charged particle. So charged particle, if it is there, then only you can feel the electromagnetic field. If charged particle is not there, then you cannot feel the electromagnetic field. So that is the inference of this slide. So with all this, I am moving to Maxwell's equations. So you have studied this Maxwell's equation. So here onwards, I am using this Maxwell's equation frequently. So many of you may be knowing, to brush up your memory, I am using this. Okay. So first one is the differential form. So you can see here a differential operator is used. What is this one? Del operator. Okay. And this is the integral form. So integral form, it will have a surface integral. So you can see here a surface element ds is there. It can be shown as a volume integral. So volume element is there here. Okay. And dl stands for the loop element it is, and ds is the surface element here. Okay, so now coming to the Coulomb's law, it is written as del dot E equal to rho. So what is rho? Rho is the charge density, E is the electric field. So if you go for del in one dimension, what it will be? It is I dou by dou x. What is I? I is the unit vector along x axis. That means if you want only magnitude, differentiate E with respect to x, then that will talk about the density at this point. Okay. If you want the variation of E along y, so how you will do this? You take differentiation of E with respect to y. That is dou E divided by dou y. That will give you rho y. Okay. Similarly, if you go for z axis, it is dou E divided by dou z. That will give you rho z. So now you add all of them. So then it will give you rho E, that is rho x plus rho y plus rho z, that is equal to rho. That is the total charge density at that particular point. Okay. So you can see here I am taking a dot product. Okay. Dot product always ends up at a scalar. Okay. That is why here charge density is a scalar. Fine. So there can be different types of usage of del. So del can be used as a dot, it can be used as a cross, or it can be used without dot or cross. Okay. So if you are not using any dot or cross, it is simply del E. So then we are talking about divergence. Okay. So del, how you use, that will define the right hand side quantity. Okay. So similarly here, coming to the integral part, so you can see here, I am talking about electric field about a surface. A surface is there. So surface can be a circular surface, it can be a cylindrical surface, it can be a rectangular surface, it can be anything. So I am dividing it into small portions. Fine. So that small portion, the differential area element, I am taking it as ds. So why I am taking dot here? The direction of ds and direction of E, they should be in the same direction. Then only this has got some positive value. If they are in the opposite direction, you know dot product vanishes. Q becomes equal to 0. Okay, so that is why when you want to observe Q, so where you will take ds, you take along the